In the quiet rolling hills of Adams, Tennessee, back in the year 1817, life for the Bell family seemed idyllic. They lived on a peaceful farm, the kind you'd imagine in a classic American painting, a sturdy farmhouse surrounded by golden fields and dense whispering woods. To any passerby, they were just another hardworking family, their days filled with chores, laughter, and the simple rhythms of country life. But behind the ordinary facade, a darkness was beginning to stir, a terror that would claw its way out of the shadows and into the history books. This is the chilling true story of the Bell Witch, arguably America's most terrifying haunting. It all started with a whisper, almost too quiet to notice. John Bell, the patriarch of the family, was the first to hear the strange sounds echoing through their home at night. Faint scratching on the walls, soft tapping sounds, knocks that seemed to come from inside the very wood of the house. At first, he brushed it off. Old houses creak, animals scurry outside. It was nothing to worry about. But the sounds didn't stop. They grew bolder, louder, more demanding. Soon the entire family was on edge. They started hearing what sounded like rats gnawing on the bedposts, the unnerving sound of heavy chains being dragged across the wooden floors. Then came the whispers, faint and guttural, words just on the edge of understanding. The nights became a gauntlet of fear. As the children tried to sleep, their blankets would be ripped from their beds by an unseen force, leaving them shivering and petrified in the dark. The entity, whatever it was just getting started. Its cruelty soon found a specific target. Young Betsy Bell, John's daughter, became the focus of its torment. One night, she woke up screaming, her hair being pulled so violently that clumps were torn from her scalp. This became a horrifying new routine. Invisible hands would slap her face, leaving red welts. Mysterious scratches would appear on her skin, and bruises would form while she slept. Something unseen, something malicious had chosen her. The family was lost in a sea of confusion and terror. They were devoutly religious, so they prayed. They searched every corner of the house for a rational explanation, but there was none. And as their desperation grew, the entity evolved. It found its voice. At first, it was just mumbles and whispers from the darkest corners of the rooms. But day by day, the voice grew stronger, clearer, as if the spirit was practicing, learning to communicate with the world of the living. It began to laugh, to mock them, and eventually to hold full, terrifying conversations with anyone in the room. When asked who it was, it declared itself a witch. Its purpose was brutally simple: to destroy John Bell and his family. This was no ordinary haunting. The spirit was intelligent, cunning, and deeply cruel. In one moment, it would flawlessly recite entire passages from the Bible or sing church hymns with a beautiful, angelic voice. In the next, it would spew the most vile curses and threats. It was a master of psychological warfare. It could mimic the voices of their neighbors, creating paranoia and distrust. It revealed deeply personal secrets that no one outside the family could possibly know. It gave conflicting stories about its identity, sometimes claiming to be the spirit of a Native American whose grave had been disturbed. Other times insisting it was Kate Batts, a local woman who had a bitter dispute with John Bell and had allegedly sworn a curse upon him. Whatever it was, its hatred for John was absolute and terrifyingly real. Word of the bizarre events at the Bell farm spread like wildfire through the small community. Naturally, people were curious. Neighbors and friends would visit, some skeptical, some brave, but they all left shaken. They heard the disembodied voice for themselves. They watched in disbelief as objects flew across the room, lifted by invisible hands. They felt the sudden, bone-chilling cold spots that signaled the entity's presence. Even local ministers, men of God, were powerless. They came to perform exorcisms, to pray, to command the spirit to leave, but the witch only laughed at their attempts, often joining in their prayers only to twist the words into something blasphemous. One of the most unsettling aspects of the Bell Witch was its seemingly limitless knowledge. It knew things it shouldn't have. The entity could repeat, word for word, 2 different sermons that were being delivered simultaneously in churches miles apart. It could describe events happening in other homes, in other towns, in real time, as if it were a ghostly spy. This omniscience was terrifying. It wasn't just a noisy ghost. It was an all-seeing, all-knowing presence that had invaded every aspect of their lives. And all the while, its focus remained locked on its primary victim, John Bell. He began to suffer from a mysterious and debilitating illness. He would experience strange fits and seizures, and his face would contort in pain. His tongue would often swell up in his mouth, making it impossible for him to speak or eat. His once strong body started to wither. And through it all, the witch was there, a constant voice of torment. It called him Old Jack and relentlessly taunted him, vowing that it was responsible for his suffering and that it would not stop until he was dead. "I will plague you until the day you die," it would hiss from the shadows. The physical attacks on John grew more frequent and more violent. He would collapse while working in the fields, gasping for breath as if an invisible force were choking him. His family could do nothing but watch in horror as this unseen entity drained the life from him, day by agonizing day. Betsy's torment also continued. Her hair was pulled, she was pinched and slapped, and at times, she was thrown across the room by the spirit's violent power. The witch even meddled in her love life, forbidding her from marrying a local boy she was engaged to, a young man named Joshua Gardner. It tormented her so relentlessly about the union that Betsy, heartbroken, finally broke off the engagement. By this point, the legend of the Bell Witch was known far and wide. The haunting became so famous that it reportedly attracted the attention of a man who would one day become President of the United States, General Andrew Jackson. Intrigued and a bit skeptical, Jackson gathered a group of his men and set off for the Bell farm to investigate. His men were full of bravado, boasting they could handle any spirit. But as their wagon approached the property, it suddenly ground to a halt. The horses strained, but the wheels were stuck fast, as if chained to the ground. As the men struggled in confusion, a sharp, metallic-sounding female voice echoed from the trees, taunting them. "You can go on, gentlemen," it shrieked, "but I will see you again tonight." Terrified, Jackson's men reportedly begged him to turn back. They fled the farm, their bravado shattered. The haunting reached its horrifying conclusion in the cold of December 1820. John Bell's health had completely failed. He was bedridden, barely clinging to life. One morning, the family found a small, strange vial containing an unidentified black liquid in the medicine cupboard. As they stood there, confused and alarmed, the witch's voice filled the room, triumphant and chilling. "It's useless for you to try and help him," it gloated. "I gave him a dose of that last night. He is mine now." On December 20th, 1820, John Bell passed away. He is believed to be the only person in American history whose death was officially attributed by a doctor to the actions of a supernatural entity. But the witch's cruelty didn't end there. At his funeral, as his family and friends mourned, the entity's voice reportedly rang out across the graveyard, singing loud, bawdy drinking songs, laughing and celebrating the death of its enemy. After John Bell's death, the haunting began to fade. The extreme physical violence subsided, but the entity didn't disappear entirely. It continued to bother Betsy until she formally broke her engagement, as it had demanded. Once that was done, the witch seemed satisfied. It announced that it was leaving, but it made a chilling promise. It would return in 7 years. And according to the legend, it did, focusing its attention on one of John Bell's sons for a short period before vanishing again, this time promising to return over a century later. To this day, the dark legacy of the Bell Witch hangs over the land in Adams, Tennessee. The Bell Witch Cave, a limestone cave located on the property that once belonged to the family, is a site of pilgrimage for paranormal enthusiasts. Visitors to the cave and the surrounding area report experiencing strange phenomena: disembodied whispers on the wind, sudden drops in temperature, the feeling of being watched, and even sightings of shadowy figures darting between the trees. Many leave with a profound sense of unease, convinced that the malevolent spirit of the witch never truly left. What makes the Bell Witch story so enduringly terrifying is the sheer volume of evidence and testimony. This wasn't a story told by one or two frightened people. The haunting was documented for years and witnessed by dozens, if not hundreds, of individuals, family, friends, neighbors, skeptics, and clergy. Was it the vengeful spirit of Kate Batts enacting a curse from beyond the grave? Was it a poltergeist conjured by the family's own turmoil? Or was it something else entirely, something older, darker, that simply found pleasure in human suffering? We may never know for certain, but the story of the Bell family serves as a chilling reminder. It's a testament to the idea that sometimes the greatest horrors aren't hiding in the dark. Sometimes they step out into the light. They speak, they laugh, and they tell you exactly what they're going to do. So if you ever find yourself walking the quiet country roads of Adams, Tennessee, and you hear a faint whisper carried on the breeze, just remember the story of the Bell Witch. She promised she would return. Thank you so much for joining me on this dive into one of America's most famous hauntings. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the dark side of history. Let me know in the comments what you think about the Bell Witch. Until next time, stay curious.